Guys, welcome back to my channel. So in this week's video, I'm doing a comparison on America versus Europe. So I have been to Europe before, specifically mostly to Serbia, and I feel like in general, especially Eastern Europe, there's a lot of cultural differences between Eastern Europe and America. And I've noticed a lot of them since I know how it is lifestyle-wise in Eastern Europe. So today I'm going to talk about some differences between the two cultures and lifestyles. I'm not going to be speaking about Europe as a whole because I have not been to Western Europe. I've only been to Eastern Europe, so I can't really speak for that side of Europe. I do know Eastern a bit, so I will be able to tell you guys about some differences between Eastern Europe and America. So the first difference is that in America, people are going to be more work heavy than in Europe. Not saying that people don't work in Europe, obviously they do, but in America, you're just going to find people do more work heavy jobs. They're going to be working a lot more just in general, and they might take more overnight shifts. They just are going to have more time for work than other things. But in Europe, it's not going to be uncommon to see people sitting outside a cafe on a Tuesday morning at like 11 a.m. But in America, you don't really see people out during that time, because usually people are working at that time. In America, it's common to have a 9-to-5 job. So yeah, so in Europe, just people are really more, they make a lot more time for probably family or just going out in general, and they prioritize that more than in America, where people prioritize maybe their work or their career more rather than time for things. Number two is the traffic flow is a lot heavier in America than Europe. In America, pretty much everyone drives a car, owns a car, rents a car. And they don't really operate on much other transportation. But in Europe, you're going to see people riding on bikes, trains, subways, I'm not sure. Walking, there's a lot of walking in Europe. And there are cars, obviously, that people use, but some people don't even own a car. Some people just do taxis, or people just have other people maybe drive them to places at certain times. So people in Europe are just going to walk more and take other forms of transportation, which leads to less traffic in Europe. But in America, people just really rely on their cars, and that's why there's so much traffic flow in America, especially in big cities. Number three is Europeans will tend to eat more fresh and earth-grown foods rather than Americans. Americans are going to tend to have more processed or more fast food type meals rather than people living in Europe. That's because Americans are always on the go. They like their fast food. Not saying that's the only thing they eat, but just America has more big businesses that have fast food companies. So Americans are just going to eat more fast food because it's quick, it's easy, and that's a lot of what America has is fast food companies. But in Europe, people just enjoy eating healthy. They probably take smaller meal portions at restaurants, and they just enjoy cooking more and styling up their own meals. Number four, this goes back to the last one, is there's more big businesses in America. And with that, I mean there are businesses launching in America, and it's just a very opportunist country. So I feel like in a lot of cities, and even places where it's not a big city, there's going to be a lot of buildings and just a lot less green land rather than Europe, where you're going to see like more nature and all that stuff rather than buildings and a bunch of cars everywhere and just billboards promoting things. Europe does have that kind of stuff, but it's not as prominent as in America. In Europe, there's a lot more historic buildings, a lot more historic sites, and people might like reuse old buildings in order to build new businesses, rather than America, there's always new businesses being built and new buildings and on top of the things that were already old. So they're just taking up a lot of green land and a lot of land in general to make these things happen. Rather than Europe, they make sure to conserve a lot of their nature and their green space. Both different cultures of Eastern Europe and America perceive time. So in Europe, you're of course going to see more historic buildings, more historic sites. So all those buildings were built way back before probably America was even a continent. So Americans, they might think that a certain building that's 200 years old is very old. But if you look at it as a European's perspective, they're going to think that building is so new. But Americans just perceive time differently because they don't realize what old actually means. Like in Europe, buildings may have been back from like the 1700s. But in America, people think that buildings from the 1970s is old, but that's actually very new to Europeans. So just the way they perceive time is different. The metric system in Europe and in America. So Europeans are going to tend to use meters, liters, Celsius, kilograms, and kilometers, while Americans are going to use yards, miles, pounds, and Fahrenheit. So when we look at the way we write our dates in America, it's typically the month, the day, and the year. But in Europe, it's more common to write the day, the month, the year, because it's from like smallest to largest. But America just does things differently, like all around from everywhere else in the world. So a lot of things are different than how they are in Europe. So the way we write dates is different. The way we perceive time is different. In Europe, I know a lot of places like using the military time. If instead of saying it's 4 p.m., they're going to say it's 16. For distance traveled by a car, Europeans are going to use kilometers while Americans use miles. So that's another difference. And yeah, just the way Americans and Europeans perceive their time and the metric system is pretty different. So that's all I have for this video. I hope you guys learned something new about Eastern Europe a little bit and America. So I will see you guys in my next video, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.